and then how to manage it, of course. Right. And then the management as follows is going to be the same, very similar to what it was for type 2, right? This first area, you're going to take off a very small percentage. It's going to be 10 to 15. Your second area, again, is going to be anywhere between, 50 to 60. And then your third area is going to be, again, another engineered liquidity. No, I can't draw for whatever. Shit. Okay, my thing just completely froze. Then it's going to be another liquidity area to the left. So that's how you manage it with the type 2 and the type 3. Very similar for management. The type 1 is where you want to take off majority of your position at the first TP because that's very, very it's most likely it's just going to take it out. So once everyone is done with this, I will now everything now just came into play. Sorry, everyone. Type 3, I don't know why it just loaded. Type 3 now is this is where, again, type 3 internal inducement. This is where obviously your entry is going to be. So when you have a type 3 inducement, similarly, I would want to take majority off at the first TP. I know what the other picture was on the screen. But here for your first TP, this is where I would want to have majority confidence. So nothing internal, right? That would just be break even. But having confidence in this direction, this is where I would put, again, your 60% plus for your first TP and not taking a small partial, right? Because in this instance, it's just very clear. Following higher time frame extreme, you're going to be going lower. And when it takes out an inducement, I mean, this is where obviously your S&T is going to be, and then price will just fail. So again, in this scenario, I would say 60 here, and then the remaining to the left, you're going to have that engineered liquidity. This is where I would take off, right, your other 20, and then for your swing position, which will be a brand new lows, that's where I would take off, the remaining 20 or so. Again, write out how you would manage the trades. Again, this is a guideline. It's not specifics, and I'll be dropping some news to you guys later about trade management after we get through these setups. Again, everyone type a 1 when you are complete, and we'll move on to the next. Good. Awesome. All right, let's keep going through. My system working. Oh, all right. So let's go here. Now we're going to be going into where's this? Right, so now we're going to be going into the medium probability trade. So these are a little bit more case specific. So I'm going to have to do more hypothesizing with this to show you guys. So let's go ahead and sketch this one out. When we're talking about a type 1 decisional, what am I referring to here? Right. Well, remember how we talked about a type 1 extreme? These are the medium probability, right? So these are the two rankings. When you have your 2 ranks, we're sketching out what this would look like. Your type 1 decisional would look like this. Right? If this is where your extreme would be in this scenario, in your type 1, your decisional is going to be right here. My bad, y'all. So type 1 breaks and you have your decisional. This is a medium, risk trade. It's still high probability, right? It's medium to high probability. These are B plus classifications. But oftentimes what you are going to see in this scenario is it'll give a small reaction from the decisional, and then it'll just wick up to the extreme and then drop. Out of my many cases of seeing this, the extreme is the highest probability. So that's why it's A grade. This is B, it's the yellow, because it can still work sometimes, but majority of the time, again, this is where your decisional is going to be. A wall will be built, and then I'll just take it out, then to reverse. So here, this is what I would exactly draw everybody right here. This would be your decisional. So your decisional, this would be your type 1 inducement here. And then your management for this, right? Your management would be as so. Okay, this is your decisional. So here, because it's a decisional, your management is going to be different. It is going to look like this here, here, here. This will be your TP1. This will be your TP2. And then your TP3 in this instance will be over here. Your TP3 is going to be the main leg, your main structure. And how would you manage these? Again, a little bit different for these types for your medium. Your medium inducements, your medium setups, everybody, you want to take more off for your first take profit than for your high probability, because your medium setups aren't going to be as high probability as your high ones. So you want to take off and secure more profit here. So your first TP here, this is where I would confidently say take off 20 to 30% at your first, right? And why do I say this? Again, your first 30%, because what did we just say? Price can come down here, then wick up, then drop lower. So it's always safe to have some banked. So in case you do get broken even after taking some out, well, when it comes back to the extreme, at least you have now more capital in your account so you can risk without, losing more. So 20, 30% off here at your TP2. This is again where I would go ahead and still take off that 50 to 60%, right? 50 to 60%. And then after the 50 to 60% is taken at your TP2, your TP3, that's going to leave you anywhere, between 30 to 20% left on the trade. I would just go ahead and close the remaining here. So there should be, about 30% or so that you can close at your TP3. And I always have 3 TPs for the most part, unless there's like a whole wall. Then I just have two TPs, and my second one is a swing position. But get in the habit of having 3 take profits, and it's always at your minor inducement, your medium inducement, and then your major inducement. Of course, interchangeable with your engineered liquidity, but that's how I would always gauge it. That's the only place you're going to be taking inducements. Do not take partials at counter trend order blocks. I most definitely would not, because if you don't know the right order block, then how are you going to know where it's going to stop? You don't, right? So always take partials at inducements or engineered liquidity and nothing else. Right, and then for this, if you guys are done drawing this, I will flip this invertedly, right? So in this example, here again, you could be structurally bullish. This is your inducement. Here is your decisional right here. Price can come to your decisional and then it can go higher, which again makes a lot of sense here. But we know that when you have this happen, how do you want to manage your position? How do you want to manage your trade? Again, internally, here, I would go ahead and take off 20. Here, I would take off, of this 20 already taken off, I would take off again, 50 to 60. And then leave the remaining on for your swing target, which will be potentially a third, maybe a little more, depending on what you decide. These are your own guidelines. It's not rules. It's always going to differ depending on what your needs are, your account is. But then, of course, your last and final TP will be, structure or inducement to the left, right? Again, the reason we take off at TPs or inducements is because there's always going to be order blocks lying after, right? Take off here. It could be the extreme and it can go lower, right? So that's why we always take off at inducements. Everyone in the chat, type a 1 once you are complete with this. Damn, sorry, 213.
So the stop point for this, is it 1 or 2 for the decision?
Is what? What'd you say?
The score point, the score, is it still 1 point?
Yep, so this is supposed to be 2, guys. This is supposed to be 2. This is supposed to be 2. This is all supposed to be 2. All right, I'll give everyone another 15 seconds or so, and then we are going to go on to the next one. All right, let's go ahead and carry on. So now we're going to do a type 2 decisional. Type 2 decisional. It might seem straightforward. I can promise you this is where very important to pay attention. Type 2 decisional. Type twos, remember, assume that your main range is intact from this lower high to this lower low. Now, within your range, should all be professionals by now understanding this, you're going to have internal structure, right? You're going to have some form of internal structure. Now, a type 2 decisional, I'll make this actually a little bit clearer for you all. The type 2 decisional does this. Lower high, lower low. Your internal structure will look something like this, here, here, here. Your type 2 decisional will be located right here, right? Because this is going to be your decisional area. This will be your extreme area. The reason why the type 2 decisional is a medium category is because your decisional, while it can be induced, it makes equal highs, right? So at this point, it's ride or die. It's either like it's going to sell all the way to the ground, or it could stall, right, a little bit, and then it could just break through and then go, which ends up coming back to our type 2 extreme, which is our A grade, our highest probability. So your type 2 decisional, right? This is your type 2 decisional in here. I would draw exactly this out, everybody. Decisional in here, your internal type 2, internal to your main range. Your management is going to be as so. Here is going to be your TP1. Your TP1, this is where, again, you're going to want to take off, I would say 10% in this case. Reason being is because oftentimes, if price does mitigate this area, yes, it can go higher. But ideally, what we want to see in this scenario is price absolutely sell off. So when you take off 10%, you're going to secure a small partial of your position, but it's going to ensure that you have enough remaining to go to your second TP, which is where majority will be taken. So at your second TP, compared to how we would say 50, 60, in this instance, I would say anywhere between 60 to 70% of your position you want here. Again, the reason I'm saying 60 to 70% is because after this low is taken, what can happen? This can just act as liquidity for price to come up to your extreme, then drop. So taking off majority at your TP2 is very wise in this instance because it can still come back up to your extreme. So 10% off at your internal TP, your remaining 60 to 70% off at your TP2, and then of course your third take profit, right, is then going to be your major or your higher time frame. And at this point, go ahead and take off, the remaining 20 to 30% here. And this is the smartest way to manage your trades, absolute smartest. All right, go through here and then write this down 5 seconds. I'm going to do a quick inverse and then we're going to go on to the last. Again, today's very heavy notes. It's like we have to go through all notes because there's not enough time to go through notes and application because obviously you guys can see that we're pushing time and got through charts, but all the conceptuals is more important. You guys will be receiving homework on this, by the way, so make sure to take notes. All right, now we're going to do the buys inverse real quickly. Again, type 2 decisional. Whenever you hear about type 2, think about it respects the range. Type 2 respects the range, right? So here you have your higher low, your higher high. Within here, you're obviously going to have this, right? In this case, you might have seen it maybe pull back a little bit, but it's most probable it'll go to the extreme. So that's why the extremes are more probable, but still here, type 2 at a decisional, it can still work, but it's a medium quality trade, medium to high. So here, and then of course your management, how are you going to manage your position? Management is going to be TP1, TP2, TP3 again, TP1, take off 10%, your TP2 is going to be, that 60, 70, TP3 will be 20, 30. All right. All right, everyone, how are we feeling so far? I know we're just going through a whole bunch of conceptuals. Important though. How are we feeling? Good. Awesome. All right. Now, the last one we are going to be going through. I'm trying to see what I want to share. What do I want to share? Yeah, I'm going to share with you guys today one example of a red. So now remember, this is the baseline. There's going to be a whole Rolodex for you guys to see 3 to 5 different entries or different setups, mastermind setups per each tier. We're just starting off with you guys the most obvious, the best ones, and just one to not use. And this is going to be your type 3 decisional. Okay, your type 3 decisional. So this, again, your score is going to be 3 points here. We're not going to be including any other, a couple more. We have more to get through today. So after we get through this, we're then going to have another quick break, go to block 3 and go right through it. Awesome, awesome, good. Type 3 decisional. Order flow, that's what it was. The type 3 decisional order flow. So this one, right, if you have type 3, it's going to look like this. So it's different because it follows, you'll see what I'm saying. In this instance, right, where is your higher time frame? High, low. There's a key point why this is a very low quality trade. Where's your type 3 inducement? Right here. Where's your type 3 decisional? Right here. There's one key reason why this is a very low quality trade, and can anyone tell me why? Sometimes the answer is right in front of your eyes.
There is a wall.
Beautiful. There's a wall, right? There's a wall. Also, this is the engineered liquidity. That first internal point, it's engineered liquidity. So this one, I would say as a whole, if you see it, you can take it, but I would always be mindful that when you see this, oftentimes it'll just mitigate, then go to the extreme. This is what oftentimes you are going to see. Now, how you will manage this is going to be strictly based, it's really going to be based on intuition. If you decide to choose this, what I would say, do not have the expectation you're going to be taking off everything here, right? That happens. Yeah. I would say take off majority, but I would say when you enter this, I would say 5, 6 out of 10 times, you can most likely expect this not to work. If higher than that, obviously no percentages, but from my own experience, I would say majority of the time, this will not work. If anything, it'll either come down here, then go higher, then go lower, or what it can do is just this. One or the other, right? So I would just say here, if you're going to manage this, I would take off 20% here. I would then here, again, high, I would take off a lot of the position. I would take off 70%. And then your remaining TP, that's where I would take off the remaining 10%. Just be mindful that the lower probability trade that you're using, the more you're going to take profit at the first target. Because majority of the time, even if it is a lower probability trade, it will at least go to the first TP. Even with all of these different scenarios, I would say going to the first take profit, 8, 9 out of 10 times it will, if you apply it correctly. Meaning it'll go to the first TP, even if you end up being wrong, based on liquidity. Remember, you take out a high, you take out a low. Follows rules. This is where majority, I don't want to say every time, but if you manage and follow a position correctly, 8, 9 out of 10 times, it should at the minimum come back down to here. And then if you're wrong, well, then you'll know why. But knowing how to manage your positions is key to longevity. You need to know how to partial out. You need to know how to, have a plan. And this is a really good guideline. But again, over the next couple of weeks, you guys are going to have whole Rolodex of this available. And of course, after the course, after you guys go through everything and apply the knowledge you currently know, that's what's most important. So I would apply this. This is for sells. The buys is inverted. Honestly, I don't want to take time doing the buys because I really hope no one takes these positions. I just want you guys to focus on the high quality trades, and that is all. Awesome. All right. Are you ready to continue, everybody? I'm going to go over those later on. Let's see, look for notes. All right. So now everyone, last thing, and then we're going to do another quick 5-minute break before our last block. For reversals, we have a whole section. I want to either reserve this for maybe later tomorrow, but in essence, all reversal setups are the exact same thing as what you saw previously, meaning your reversal setups. Think about it. If you mitigated a higher time frame order block to the left, where are you going to be focusing on getting a buy as well? There's an S&T here. What what setup is this following? What setup is this following? What setup would this be following here?
Type 2
Yes, sir.
or treasury decisional.
Exactly, right? It'd be following the setup. So your reversal setups, virtually the exact same as all the continuations. It's just either after BOS or it's going to be reacting from an SMT. The only thing, yeah, not even worry about these right now. Again, your reversal setups are going to be all, I mean, really no green reversals. I mean, there will be a green reversal setup, but it's still going to be the same thing. Extremes, liquidity inducements, you know, they're still going to be the same direction. Now, of course, there are some minor differences, you know, from D2S, S2D, but nothing that, you know, nothing that needs 100% to be talked about today. We'll talk about it tomorrow for sure. You know, we can do a little recap for the warm up, but as time is pressing on, it is 2:30 already. We do have another block to finish, and that is going to be entries. Again, a lot of information. It's going to be some new information. And yeah, guys. So what we're going to do now, right before we get into block 3, we're going to take, what time is it? We're going to take a 6-minute break until 2:35 p.m. EST. So 6 minutes starting now. We're going to meet back here, finish block 4, and then finish block 3 and wrap it up for today. All right, everyone, go ahead and take a break, and we will be right back in 6 minutes. Ziggy, set a timer for 6 minutes.
Seconds, please. Get in front of your camera.
Day. All right. So now that we've been able to sufficiently go through all of the various setups, right? Again, very heavy and very no intensive day. You know, block day 3 is for that matter. Now that we understand the highest probability setups for homework you guys will be practicing, now it's time to figure out how we actually enter these positions. Now, we need to understand that, you know, one of the most toxic things, especially when it comes to smart money concepts, especially, is the toxicity around entries. Now, entries are, you know, they're very important, but what people fail to understand is just they're not everything, right? And, you know, especially when I first got into SMC, I was really trying to understand, you know, how can I get these sub 2 pip, these sub 3 pip stop losses, you know, consistently? Why are they so attractive? Why are they, you know, why do they just appeal everyone? Well, first of all, when you're in retail trading, you know, you're used to a stop loss 15, really 15, 20 pips out of minimum, right? You know, you don't know where to place your stop loss. You're used to large stop losses and you're like, I really want to get accurate. Well, the toxicity that's really came across with SMC is, you know, get one, you know, if you can reduce your stop loss, you can get a huge RR. While this is true, many people, virtually, I'd say 80, 90+% of people when it comes to SMC, the reason they fail is they're always so focused on the entry and the analysis rather than actually making the money. You know, some people would 10 times out of 10 say, I need to have a 5 pip stop loss, 10 pip stop loss, 5 pip or 3 pip stop loss, or I'm not taking the trade. And then they end up waiting for a trade that will never happen, never making any money, rather than accepting that they could have a little bit larger of a stop loss, but at least able to make money. I'm here to help you guys rewrite the wrongs that you've either A, been taught, or B, you have experienced, because it's something that I went through for a long time. I was so focused for the first, I'd say, year and a half on perfection, 2 years. I want to get perfect, less than 2 pips, less than 1 pip, because intrinsically that makes you feel really good when you can know all the way down to the pipette. But this is where my job is to bring you guys back to reality and realize, stop getting caught up in all the, you know, in all the BS. That's not going to make you any money. What is going to make you money is being consistent in getting in trades. If you can't get in the trade, it doesn't matter how perfect you can make a refinement at the end of the day if you don't make any money, right? So this block is going to be dedicated to the mastermind entry protocols, the variations. From students who have been in the past, we have a ton of different entries, but I can 100% say you are not going to be learning all of them in the bootcamp. Why is that? Because you do not need 8 different entries, because that will set you up for failure. You need to learn how to master 4 of the highest probability, be consistent with those. And then if you choose to use the others, great. But I'm going to show you my exact approach that I do for my entries after you learn, you know, these core 4, core 5 as a whole, and then what I specifically do, because I don't, yes, I apply some of the other entries, but for me to say you guys will be able to do them, you won't. You'd be losing all the time, because it takes a very high level of intuition to know when to apply them, when not to use them. And it's things that you can't teach. It's just based on experience. So for these mastermind protocols, you're going to be learning the truth about entries, what our approach is, and specifically new and current students, you're going to learn my exact method to every single trade that I take. it's always the same. And you're going to realize there's no difference in, a trade I've taken a year ago versus today. It's always going to have the same criteria, the same 1, 2, 3 entries, the same style. So let's get right into it. All right, we're going to get right into our entry protocols, right? Protocols and management. All right, so everybody, in this section, you guys can learn to expect the precise mastermind entry models, maximizing your return with a 1 to 10 RR minimum each. Now, with that being said, I'm not focused on your RR. I'm focused on your results, right? So this is where things are going to be changing a little bit. You're going to know when and where to apply each entry model, how to manage your trades, starting with your entry decision to your stop loss, your break even, and your TP. We've already talked about the TPs, and the stack and the trap and stack approach. Most likely will not be covered at all during this boot camp, but we will see because we've already talked about it. All right, so getting right into it. Time for you guys to learn the ultimate skill set of growing any account with unparalleled precision and confidence. Okay. Mastermind entry. Why do most traders get stopped out and struggle in choosing the right entry? How many times have you guys waited for a trade, had a refinement, and it never even came close to it? And you were waiting maybe days, maybe a week, and it just absolutely kept running away. How many times have you guys experienced that? How many times have you guys experienced marking an order block you thought was correct? It was a good selection, and it barely took out your order block, then ended up going exactly where you wanted it to. Oh, it made a 1 to 20, 1 to 15, 1 to 10. And I got stopped out, right? Well, this is where being a prodigy and identifying order blocks, being a phenom in that is so important, because your POIs are the same things as your entries. So what is the reality of this scenario? Well, I can confidently tell you guys, I don't know why this crap's popping up. Everyone always wants the perfect entry, but this is not the first goal. Again, unorthodox approach. The first objective of any trade or of any setup is to get in the trade. It should not be, I want to get a 1 to 10, a 1 to 15. That should not be your first thought process that goes through your mind. You think, I'm very confident in this setup. I want to make money. Don't worry about if it's 1 to 10. There's rules for this that you're going to learn. Oh, I always refine my OB too much and I miss every move. Or, I don't want to enter a trade because my RR isn't near where I want it to be. You might have went through that yourself. Well, if it's a 1 to 4, 1 to 5, I might as well not get in. That is the wrong way to think, my friend. Why? Because you're still making money. Money is better than no money, right? So the truth is, how do we get such large RR? Well, the truth of the matter is we will never, ever, ever know the correct order block, the point of interest. Never. We don't know the exact area the institutions are getting. We don't know the exact area they're getting out. We do not know. The reason I say we don't know, because if I said we know where they're getting in, that means we would all be billionaires. We don't know, right? We don't know. That's the fact of the matter. However, we can have the highest degree of probability of understanding where they are getting in. And that becomes my own edge, my own refinement that I learned. Like you guys just learned all that about myself, all this. The only order block you can ever know with the highest degree of accuracy is the largest one. That's the only one you will know. So with that being said, we must first get into the trade based on the largest order block, and then we can refine it afterwards. Just because prices may have stopped you out of your entry does not mean to give up on the trade. How many times have you identified a point of interest? There's my break of structure. I get in the trade and you get stopped out, but it's still in your point of interest. The trade is not invalid until it's over. It's not invalid, right? So stay true to the trade. Even if you get stopped out, you might get stopped out once before it ends up going in your direction. But as long as it maintains your valid trade idea, keep it. So with that being said, if you're still in a higher time frame POI, your trade idea is still valid. This is something I've always been good about, not letting a loss get to my head. I don't care about a loss. I know that if I take a loss, the next trade is going to make up for it tenfold. Don't worry about losses. If you're worried about losing, trading is not for you. It's not. You are going to lose. But the good news is when you do lose, it's just money you've already made. So if you start with $100, now you're at 150. Did you go 100, 150? Most likely not. You probably went 100. You then went to 110, 108, 130, 125. Now you're at 150. You had minor setbacks. And these stop losses, you got to think, are just the fuel that needs to be taken in order for you to go higher. Minor setbacks for major comebacks. It's all about perspective. Be positive. Are you going to win all the time? No. But this is where being a trader comes into play. Managing risk, managing your position. That's the key to longevity. It doesn't matter what you trade at the end of the day. Now, our edge is highly sophisticated. It's highly precise, unlike anything that you will or have ever seen before. And I know without a doubt in my mind, because I've done virtually everything. So just some disclaimers, but don't get upset about the disclaimers, because we're just getting rid of the bad up front, because all the great is what's to follow. All right. So let's take a deeper look. It's not good enough to be a great analyst. You have to be able to manage as well. If you don't manage your position, Your position will control you, your emotions, you making terrible decisions, irrational decisions, because you're using emotions rather than logic. Whenever you enter a trade, always have your TPs outlined, always have your SL is. Even before you press click, do not even dare take a trade before you know what the RR is, before you know where you're managing your position. If you're entering it just because you want to get in, you are not trading, you are gambling. I don't care at the end of the day. You have to know the ins and outs of it to properly mitigate the risk that you're taking. This is where you need to drop your old habits. If you keep them in here, you will fail. Just saying it for what it is, you will fail if you keep your old habits. In order to get to where you want to be, you're going to have to do things you've never done. You have to become a different version of yourself. All of this will be in your psyche. It's all going to be your psychological makeup. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the analysis. So the truth, it's simply not enough just to forecast where price will go. We need to be able to understand in real time if price is giving us the green light for these entries, these positions. When you are finally in the trade, knowing when it's going to take off, when you're going to be breaking even, and even when to hedge are critical to building your account. We recommend only choosing a routine approach based off of your choosing, and do not use all of them at once, or you will not be setting yourself up for success. Do not apply all 5 in different places. You're going to be choosing 1 or 2, master those, and then as you build your account and concept understanding, then you're going to be able to go on to the others once your confidence builds. Remember, less is more. So now let's take a look at the best entry models. All right, our first one. Some of these should be no shocker to you. The ones that you haven't heard of, we are not going over. That's where you will lose a lot. So this is where you're going to go over. Lower time frame, refined limit order, right? Your perceived risk, low. That means it's a very high quality trade. It's not a lot of risk involved. It's always the same approach. So you are going to be using a refined limit order on lower time frame extreme order blocks. Key point here, lower time frame extreme order blocks within higher time frame order blocks for the maximum precision. These lead to some of the highest quality, highest RR trades. Now, when I say limit order, what I personally do is I've been on both sides of spread. I always set my alert at a limit order, but I'll never just place a limit order because I'm on the charts, I watch, so I manually just press it. But it's the same thing, right? So that being said, this is what we're going to look at. So rules and when to apply. What you always do, you always need to identify your largest order block. Before even talking about entry, you need to identify your largest order block. Where is it? After you identify your largest order block, you then need to zoom in on the extreme, the lower time frame extreme of your higher time frame order block, right? So what I mean by this is when you're identifying your order block, and let's say you have, this is your higher time frame over here. This is your higher time frame. Well, your extreme, let's say this is your 4 hour, right? Your 4 hour is here. Your extreme order block, maybe on the 15-minute, is going to look like this. Here. This is your 4 hour. On the 15-minute, this will be your extreme. And this is where I would set a limit. So rather than your higher time frame order block being here, your refinement would actually be right here. Again, just showing you fractally what it's going to look like. Using extreme refinements, very high probability, right? Make sure that your extreme order block, make sure it takes out liquidity and it isn't lying at liquidity. If your extreme over here, let's say, is lying at equal highs, guess what? It's not going to work. Okay, it's not going to work. You want to make sure it's following order flow. Following order flow is very important. It doesn't have to, but if it does, all the better. What happens, again, we have lower time frame refine limit. There's 2 ways to refine your higher time frame. You can do it based on an extreme lower time frame limit, or, right, if this is your whole higher time frame, you can choose your decisional within your higher time frame order block. So you can maybe have this over here for your decisional. What I would 10 out of 10 times say, just focus on the extreme refinement. Don't even worry about the decisional. Oftentimes you will take losses at decisionals if you don't know how to refine properly. And this is very intuitive. It's not just one rule to it. It's a lot of experience. So if I had to recommend anyone, your lower time frame extremes, only focus on the extreme refinement of your higher time frame order block. Again, if this is your decisional order block right here, you're going to have an extreme refinement within here. I would just keep it as that, right? And that's what I would do for here. Now, if I zoom out and I press here, I wouldn't worry about trade management because we just went over that with the specific setups, but this is what it would look like on the right. So let's say that we had our higher time frame order block mitigated. We have our inducement here. Thinking ahead, everyone go ahead and identify where the SMT would be on this lower time frame. Good job, right? The SMT would be here, Constantinos, right? SMT would be here. So where do we think price is going to go from there? Beautiful, right? Now we have a wall, and that's all you would expect, right? So then exactly that, right? And that's how you would choose your refined limit order. You have your refined extreme within your higher time frame, just set a limit there. And everything you know is going to take place exactly as we teach, right? So this is that first entry that I would always encourage. Now, I'm going to be saving after we go through these 4 entries. At the end, I'm going to show you my personal plan to my guide to entries. So make sure to stick around to that and show you exactly what I do. So that's the first example, right? We have videos. So again, guys, these videos, because time is crunched, we can save for tomorrow. You guys are going to have access to this on the course, so I wouldn't worry about it. Again, this is where we were crunched last time. So tomorrow I'm going to restructure, and I think if you guys want, we can go through these, but you're going to have all access to the videos. So it's up to you guys. I'll take a poll right now. We can either go through the videos now, they're 8 minutes or so, or we can just save for tomorrow because there still is all the entries to go through. If you guys want to go ahead and type in the chat what you guys would like. Again, there's just so much information in 4 days, it's virtually impossible. So yeah, I figured as much. All right. So skip this. Nope, skip this. Don't play the video. Okay, skip that. All right, guys. So now what I want you guys to do, let's practice. Let's take a stab at it, right? Now it's your turn. Right. So now based on this, all I want you guys to do essentially is if this is our higher time frame order block, which one do you think is going to be the highest probability? Do you think it's going to be D, E? Which one do you guys think and why? Type in the chat if you think D or E is going to be the best one. I'm going to choose on someone to answer why they think E, and then we're going to go on. Try to pick you, Alvaro.
Right. I think order flow.
Say that again.
I think E because order flow.
You got it. Easy as that, right? What's going to be the most probable? It's going to be E. Why? Because we see that order flow is followed. If this is our higher time frame order block, we see we have some form of order flow here, 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 here. All is efficient, and this is higher time frame. There's many reasons, as Mr. Villafuerte just illustrated as well. We have an internal sell-off, and that's inside of, like, this is going to be another lower time frame order block, so that'll be another reason. There's one key reason why D is not going to be the best option. Does anyone know why D might not be the best option?
Because it didn't took the liquidity below.
Correct. One reason. The other reason is because it is lying at support resistance, right? Support and resistance, key level. Now, sometimes it doesn't have to mitigate anything, right? But the fact it's lying at key level tells us it's most likely not going to work out, right? So that is why this one, E, is going to be the best option. Now, as you can see here, we had our E below, we have our D right up here. Again, different time frame. Refining with refined limit orders is a very accurate way to refine an SL, but you won't always get tagged in, right? So it's always better to wait for an extreme. I would not set limits at decisionals. And of course, what ends up happening, price comes all the way down and then ends up going higher. And this yielded a 1 to 45 RR trade. Very awesome, great. Again, it tells you correct order block. You know where price needs to go based on everything we've already talked about, and just rinsing and repeating everybody. All right, so so now the adapt to any scenario. Okay, so the next one, typical BOS. Key point here. Remember, you guys should at this point all know the key difference between a BOS and an inducement is that a BOS is the new structural trend that forms after reacting from the true order block. If you see something like this, is this a BOS or an inducement? Is that a BOS or an inducement? Inducement. Why? Because if it doesn't mitigate a relevant order block, it's just inducing to then go lower to where your order block will be, right? So if it mitigates your correct order block and then you see structure break, it's a BOS. Now, again, nothing new here, guys should all know this. It must be in the same direction as your main leg. If it's not a BOS, it's an inducement to continue the internal trend, right? So what happens is whenever you have your BOS, right, you're going to dealt with 2 scenarios. One is you're going to have your extreme and decisional, but sometimes you can just have your extreme, right? So when we're looking at this, again, you guys can make notes of this. We already went through majority, more specific cases. But we're looking at this. If I had to ask anyone, where is your extreme order block in this scenario? Where is it valid? Where's your extreme order block for this, assuming the higher time frame was mitigated? Let's get some more people on here too, right? Some more people analyzing. We're almost through, guys. Push through the end. I know it's tough. Right? So our extreme order block is right here. Good. Yes, Mr. Villafuerte, that is the higher time frame. Yes, this is going to be our refined order block here. It took liquidity. It has imbalance. Everything it's following, again, order flow, mitigated the highest time frame. Now it's transferred over to here. With that being said, where's the decisional? Is there one? Yes or no? There is no decisional in this case. Why? Gabby. Liquidity precedente? Gabby, liquidity presente before this order block? No, there is no liquidity before this order block. So that tells us there is no decisional at this point. Now you could think, oh, this is the decisional. Again, it's just a single candle. There's no pullback. It's just one candle. So with that being said, this is the only order block. Now my next question is, where's the inducement before this order block? If there isn't any, type it in the chat. If there is, and annotate on the chart. We do not have an inducement. Correct. We do not have an inducement in this case. Do we see any structure? Right? I wouldn't overcomplicate it. I wouldn't even say a lower high, lower low. That's just a single candle, guys, right? So I wouldn't even say that. If there is no inducement, and this is our order block, there's no inducement over here. There's also no engineered liquidity. What does that tell us we need to see before this order block?
Some kind of engineer liquidity.
Yes, sir. Right? Some form, well, not necessarily engineered, but we're going to have to see a type 2 come in to our extreme. And that follows one of our high probability setups, right? We see new structure, we need to see a type 2, right? So that's what we need to see in this scenario. So there's our order block. And then let's think about it. Where is the liquidity? Again, fractally speaking, we see that we have a push up, high, reaction, higher low, higher high, pulls back, comes all the way up. And then guess what? Then that's where the reversal happens. Again, all is efficient. There's a wall. We then focus on order flow. And then price will continue to end up selling lower, right? Now, it's not just following extremes. You're going to have decisionals at times, but remember, they follow the exact setups that you see. If you see a decisional here, go back to the setups. What's a high probability setup? What's a low probability? They're going to be the same entries that you take. Those are just very important to always be mindful of. Your entries, your POI setups, they should all be the same. Perfect. All right, so we have more application videos. We're going to skip over these. Nope, skip. Let's go to the next. All right, the next type of entry is what we consider a continuation entry. So how many times have you potentially missed the main move? Or if you want to add some scaling positions, have you missed, right? Like if price mitigates your main order block here, and oftentimes you see, oh, price just ran away, I can't get in. Well, now you know why that happened, because of this inducement. So now let's say price runs all the way away and you don't know how to enter your position. What do? Well, what tells you why price ran away is because there'd be no imbalance, indicating a wall. So what a continuation entry is as soon as your higher time frame is mitigated and then it runs away, on a fractal level, everybody, you guys need to understand that what's happening is exactly this. So if your main order block is mitigated down here, this is your inducement, and you know that you have a whole wall over here, you know that price is just going to run away. So knowing that that price most likely will not come all the way back down to here before going higher, what a continuation entry is it enables you to scale in a position if you missed it or if you're adding an extra one based on a lower time frame. So my question to you guys is, if all of this is efficient over here and we know that price is racing to get up to here, what do you think the most effective way to enter is going to be? It would not be identifying an order block down here. it would be zooming in on price action to see on the 1 minute if there's something like this. And how could you get in this scenario? I hope everyone identifies it correctly. If you zoom in on the 1 minute and you see this, how could you get in?
Order flow.
You got it, right? Order flow, a type 1 extreme, right? Boom. That's how you can get in, assuming prices can go higher. So that's essentially what a continuation is, right? So after the main mitigation, ask yourself, does price have a wall to the left? In that example, it did. If so, look for 1 to 3 minute pullbacks to take off from. If price is in an SMT, these are two critical things to ask yourself. Okay, and I'm just going to go draw this again. If this is where price is, and now it's up here, and if we have a wall, does price have a wall to the left? Yes. If so, look for 1 minute continuations like this and get in like this, expecting the wall to break. This is for right here. Your second option for continuation entry is if there is no wall, right? Let's say you have this. And price mitigates an SMT. How do you think we can get in now? Well, same thing. If this is an SMT, we know it's going to cause a pullback. So it could potentially just come back down to here, then to go higher. Either way, you're going to be using the 1 minute through the 5 minute to get in, because if SMT is mitigated, we know that it's going to come back to order flow, right? So it's your continuation entries are either going to look like SMT back to a 1 minute, right? Back to 1 minute, then to go higher, or it's going to be wall back to 1 minute. And like I mentioned earlier, can anyone tell me specifically earlier what I said about this? If we enter here, what do we have to know about the future?
That it can fade.
You got it. It's going to be taken out. And why is that? Why will it fail? Why will it get taken out?
Because it formed an equal low, so engineer liquidity.
There you go, right? Engineer liquidity. Price comes back here. Unfortunately, it'll just take you out. And then what? Then it can go, right? So that's why taking partials is so key, because you might get in on some scaling. Oh, these are great scalings. But as soon as price takes the liquidity, you got to think, uh-oh, it's coming right towards me now. I got to get out, right? So this is how I would manage your position. This is what a continuation entry is, right? Everyone type A1 if you have this written down from a conceptual standpoint. If you have both of these, that's what I'm illustrating with these 2 points. Okay, guys, I got 2 more, almost there. Thanks for hanging in today, guys. I know it's a longer day. Type 111. All right, good. Now let's take a quick look. Example here. Let's say the main order block in this scenario was mitigated. And let's say now, like we just talked about, we had a whole wall that price ran through, right? If it's in a wall, what do? Well, that first scenario, if it's in a wall, look for 1 to 3 minute pullbacks, has a reaction, comes into an SMC, which ends up being here. Is there a relevant SMT? If there is, what do? Well, here's the SMT, comes back to, again, this is a different time frame order block, comes back down to an order block, then it goes higher. Now, are we in a wall? Well, there's no imbalance, right? We're in a wall, yes. So what do we focus on? Focus on a pullback to the structure. What type of setup is this? Can anyone tell me what type of setup this is right here? Not entry, but what type of setup? Some new voices, preferably. Right, this is a type 3 extreme, right? Thank you, Juma. This is a type 3 extreme, because you have internal high, or low. Boom, takes it out to follow the order flow, goes higher. Now, based on this, what do you think is going to be the most probable order block? If we mitigated something over here, is this going to be the right one? Or is this one going to be the right one? Which one is going to be the right order block? D or E? Konstantinos, can you tell us why you think E is the correct option?
I think the extreme, because it has order flow, it has also swept liquidity.
Exactly, right? Now, decisional, this
and also has the liquidity above.
Yep. Now, like you said, right, this could be, the decisional could work, but this is where having a higher level of understanding comes into place. Yes, it sweeps liquidity. Yes, it follows order flow, all which are, great things to see, but not always will it come back to order flow, right? The decisional can be, it can work sometimes, but let's think about this. Within this range, where is the engineered liquidity? Boom, right? So this is the engineered liquidity. Mitigated, this is what? Right? This, if we're talking about the anatomy of the algo, a lot's always put together. This is our main range. We have internal high or low, internal high or high. This is our type 1 inducement. So here, we take out a wall, take out orders here. Now I guess we have to take out orders over here. So that's why the decisional will most likely not work in this case in the extremal. Again, tying a lot together, and you can say one thing validates it, but there's many different things that that will validate it. And there's even another thing. Break and retest, key zone. There's so many things telling you why one thing won't work. So it's always important to be mindful of all this. Again, resistance, support. We buy below support, sell above resistance, right? So that's why this worked exactly as it did. So when a wall is present to the left, we automatically shift our focus to the lower time frame. Write that down, star it. When a wall is present, shift your focus to here, lower time frame. Focus on it breaking the wall. Again, pull back to then come to the extreme. And then that's where we start off again, right? Extreme mitigated, boom. Have another entry. Price comes back to where? We come back to a higher time frame, another entry, release, right? And then again, S&T's tying everything together, which you'll be able to do. It'll then just allow you to have even more and more and more, so on and so forth. Okay, let's keep going. Skipping this video. Let's see. We could. This is not a good example, but we can take a stab at this, right? Let's say here that we had our main order block mitigated. Let's say this is our main order block. Now, let's say this is where price currently is. Let's think about it. We took out a high. Let's now identify internally where a potential continuation trade is, right? Where a potential continuation trade would be. Again, we're gonna have to maybe dumb this down a little bit. So where is our engineered liquidity within the range? Well, low to high, see an imbalance here. Boom. Now we know where engineered liquidity is. Again, yes, you have all of this too, right? All of this. Doesn't mitigate anything, doesn't have order flow, right? So now after that, we need to figure out where is the continuation order block. Do you have anything below here? Yeah, we do, right? So maybe this could be your decisional. Again, I personally wouldn't choose this as a decisional, but to each their own, right? You have a whole wall over here, and then you have your extreme down here. So what's it going to do? Is it going to come down to here and go higher, or right, induce, mitigate? Is it going to then come down to here and then go higher, right? Well, if I had to bet, I would say the second one, decisionals. Again, I will never make just a refinement based on one candle. It always needs to have the same. The order block I choose always will match the diagram that I show you guys. This does not match a diagram. It's literally lying at the engineered liquidity, right? This is a match diagram, so I'm not choosing it. So in this case, I would choose this extreme, follows a continuation, and of course, ends up coming all the way lower to then make a new high. Again, just a example, so we keep going through. Now, the fourth type of entry, order flow with a BOS. You guys should be masters with order flow, especially now that you have the blueprint, you have the cheat code. There's a whole order flow is king. Order flow rules the markets everywhere, every direction, every move. All of it's responsible because of order flow. Even if you don't see the order block, it reacted from one, right? So your order flow here, this is the type without BOS. Now, order flow does not need structure to be considered valid. It doesn't need a break structure, but this example we're talking about does. So after mitigating a higher time frame order block, as can be represented here, identify the consecutive extremes being mitigated, making new internal structure. So like we talked about, everybody, many times now, if this is the inducement and this is the trap, what do we expect after? Let's get some people in the chat. I know two brain cells are working right now. After the trap, what's the next thing we look for? Sometimes right in front of your eyes. Yes, we look for order flow, right? Boom, it was mitigated. We're having, again, not all are on this time for just showing you. We now have a new low, right? We have a new low, makes a high, comes all the way back. Boom, we have a new higher low. And then you see order flow maintaining. And of course, where do you expect? Based on inducement, right? Based on inducement, two options. It can come down to here, which would be what type of inducement, everybody? What type of inducement? Sometimes it's right in front of you. Three, right? To type 3. If this is our new structure, this is our internal. So it comes down to here. This would be our type 3 lower time frame inducement to break to then go higher. Perfect sense. Can anyone tell me in this scenario what inducement we would need to see for this to be valid? What do we need to see? Either type it or draw it out on the screen. IDM type 2, right? Exactly, Mr. Gifuerte. Yes, sir. All right, we need to see this. We have to see some form of low. We need to see it broken. And then guess what? Where do you think we're going to be targeting next based on walls, based on liquidity? Well, where's the imbalance? We have an imbalance here. Where's the next imbalance? Oh, there is none, right? So there's a whole wall over here, which tells us maybe there's an SMC. So maybe if there's a wall and we're in a wall, just going to break all the way through, right? So that's how we need to navigate it. Also, important point, everybody, it only needs to mitigate the higher time frame. So even if you had a 5 minute and you had a 1 minute, as soon as that 5 minute is mitigated, start following intention. Never wait for a refinement to come into place. Okay. Now, that being said, guess what? Exactly like we drew out. Boom, came into play, came up to our SMT, had a small reaction, boom, broke all the way through. After it broke through, came back to here, which would be a high, higher, low, higher, high, a type 3 inducement to come back to this order block, then took off. Why did it go off so crazy? Why was there a big imbalance that it pushed afterwards? Well, because of the wall. It had no reason to stop, so it's not gonna. Right? So there we have it. Now, let's do this. Skip this video. And the last one, everybody, is going to be order flow with no BOS. This is more advanced. If you can't, if you're not able to properly navigate order flow, I would definitely not encourage doing this, but it's all fractal. Order flow does not need to break structure to be valid. The key point in order flow is it accumulates to break structure, right? So what happens is, when you are in, I'll just do an uptrend in this case. This point is going to be here, here, here. As soon as this is broken, right, and your higher time frame is mitigated, right? You have your inducement. This is your trap that mitigates and takes out your inducement. And then after the trap, you're always going to identify some form of SMT. And then all you do is follow order flow thereafter. And order flow, it'll just keep going lower and then keep mitigating itself. And notice it hasn't broken this low yet. So it's just following internal structure until it gets to this point. So where you have seen so many of my entries, it's all order flow. I mean, it's really nothing special than that. But the way I'm able to read order flow is unparalleled to anyone else with exceptional confidence, not arrogance, but confidence. Because I've seen it tens of thousands of times. And it's like when you see this, oh, here's your main order block. Why is all this happening? Institutions accumulating their positions on a fractal level to cause a huge impulsive move to the sell side to happen. So what happens is after mitigating the higher time frame order block, we then just need to identify the consecutive extremes being mitigated, which are failing to make new structure, right? So again, when I say order flow, that means there's no imbalance. That means extremes are being mitigated. When I say extremes, everybody, I'm not talking about, lower highs, lower lows. I'm saying the extremes of the internal trend. Ooh, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. Like all of these are extremes, but you only know extremes if you know the trends, if you know the structure. And I'm focusing on internal structure, right? So over here, even this mitigated the higher time frame. There was no imbalance. Price came up and it dropped. This becomes your new order block. No imbalance, a tricky way for you guys to know how to identify order flow most clear is if you don't see imbalance. If you don't see imbalance, assume order flow is intact. It's another pro tip. If you don't see imbalance, assume order flow is valid, right? So again, there was no order flow over, there's no imbalance. So guess what tells me order flow is intact? Boom, price drops off. Where's the next imbalance? Right here. Assuming all this is intact, this is my next area of order flow. Boom, imbalance. Where's my order block right here? Oh, but where's the liquidity? Internal lower low, internal lower high. Type 3, extreme, sell all the way down. All these models you have are exactly everything. Extreme. Great. What's price do? Oh, it sells down. Where's my next order block? Oh, next order block here. Sells down. Where's your next imbalance now after this has been mitigated? Well, now all this is building a wall, right? So if it comes anywhere past here, it's to the moon. Now you have this. Where's your next imbalance? Boom. Mitigated, drops. Where's your next imbalance? Boom. Mitigated, and it drops. Now, in this instance, you might say, well, shit, there's no more imbalances over here. What do I do? Experience. Just know this is where it's most likely going to come back into, right? This whole order block over here. Again, this is a fractal level. You guys will be able to navigate. Again, I'm just trying to teach you the concept of order flow, right? As you have experience, you're going to know how to properly navigate it. But here, boom, mitigated. Where does price then make a new low? Over here, mitigating, and this is fractal. When you can train your eyes to see wicks taking out wicks, you know that's order flow. Again, lessons, way more advanced lessons on that later on. And then of course, price comes into it, mitigates, drops. Oh, where's my next order block? Oh, it's here, right? If you over refine, you will miss out on the trade. That's why I say, and I have a rule, if it's a 1 to 5 or above, get in the trade at a minimum. Does that mean take 1 to 5s? I mean, yeah, it does mean take 1 to 5s. But my personal thing is, once you can do that consistently and you're getting in trades, then you can start to be more picky. For me, I won't get into a trade until it's at minimum a 1 to 6, 1 to 7. When you're funded, you don't need 1 to 10s. You don't need 1 to 15s. If you have 100, 200, 300K in funded, plus or minus, we have some traders who are managing over millions of dollars. You don't need 1 to 20s. It's not about it, right? If you get a 1 to 6, you have $100,000 and you risk 1%. Hey, you just made double a doctor's, a surgeon's salary. You're cutting up the charts. Like, don't worry about RR, but you got to make money to understand RR is not king. It's the consistency part, right? So over here again, over refinement, it was a higher time from order block over here. And then guess what? You expect price then just to sell all the way down. Now it's pretty elongated, everybody, but keeping it simple, order flow, BOS limit order, that's it. And again, just because he has entry styles, we have other ones, but I heavily advocate no one use them. And I guarantee you, anyone who is in here who does know the other entry styles and you have used them, you've probably lost a lot because they should have never been brought up because they're so advanced. You do not need them. I do not use them except here and there, maybe, but that is because I have the experience to do so. What I'm about to teach you guys now is my exact routine method of how I enter all the time, how I enter, how I manage my trades. We're gonna go over that, take 5 minutes, and then we are done for today. How does that sound, everyone, while we're hanging on the edge? How does that sound? Get some more comments in here, man, or I'm just gonna go ahead and end it right now. Let's get 30 comments or I am pausing it. I'm forever holding my peace. 11 out of 31. Let's see. I know those odds already. I know. Mr. Mert. It's like it's nighttime over here. I gotta get my dinner in, take care of the dogs. I'm trying to go. Craig along here, dedication. All right, I'll be generous. Let's get right to it. All right, so my personal approach. I'm gonna move this over. Let's clear this. Clear all this. All right, so this is where we're gonna end off for today. And here we go. I'm just gonna clear the blank chart. Let's get right to it. My entry approach is always the effing same. Always. I do not overcomplicate. I simplify, right? Less is more. What I do, I have 2 entries at a minimum, 3 to 4 entries. Again, depending on which account, I have external investors, funded accounts, my personal accounts. I have a lot of different accounts, but the approach I always take is this. First entry. These are for my first, second, third, fourth. These are how I always approach my entries. Now, depending on the scenario, they could be interchanged, but the first two will always remain the same. If you don't take anything away, take these two away. And I have not gone through this before. I have not taught it before. That's why it's off the wall right now, off the dome. So let's get right to it. My first entry, utilizing those setups that I just shared with you. It doesn't matter which one it is. I only take the highest probability, right? What I do always, I feel like I have to emphasize that. When you have your order block over here, and you have, let's say this is your higher time frame, your HTF. What I always do is within your higher time frame order block, I will always have my first entry be a refinement. Now, is it going to be a 2-pip refinement? Hell no. My first entry, the sole purpose is to make sure that I get into the trade. That is it. But it needs to be a 1 to 6 at the absolute minimum. The reason is to not make majority of the money on this position. The reason for this entry is to, one, ensure that I can at least reap some profits. But the bigger reason for this is, you'll see it right now, is this. This is always my first entry. As soon as price comes up into our entry, my first entry, what I do, blindly take a limit order, 1 to 6. Of course, everything else needs to be in place, liquidity inducements, everything, right? This first entry will at a minimum be a 1 to 6 for me. Now, again, the key point of this entry is not money, but it's to create margin. It's to have floating equity in your account. For those who have not traded live or have very little experience, I wouldn't worry about this too much. But this first entry, the sole purpose is to ensure that I have more money floating. So at this point, say practical numbers, let's say you're risking $100 here. Let's say you're risking $100. Well, what's going to happen is within here, if you risk $100 here, and let's say price goes down here, and you have, oh, well, here's an internal BOS. If you're risking $100, now you could be up, maybe $200-300. It's not trying to scale, but let's say you're up $200 or $300. What I do, my edge, because I'm not risk conservative with my life, I'm risk aggressive. That's my personality. That's who I am. What I do is I utilize what's floating and profit to risk for my next position. So if I'm floating $200 or $300 in profit, and let's say I'm willing to risk $100 a position, this next position, I'm not going to risk $100. I'm going to risk whatever I'm currently up plus what I'm willing to risk. So if I'm up $300 and I want to risk $100, on the next position, I'm actually going to risk $400. But if I lose, I'm not losing anything at the end of the day because my trade, the first entry, is already securing my stops. If it gets stopped out, I'm not losing anything, right? So I'm not losing more. I'm just making more based on having my margin be greater, having my equity be larger, but not losing any more, right? So that being said, once it comes up to here, my first entry is always a refined limit order, 1 to 5, 1 to 6. My first TP for this will always be a new low. I don't care what happens internally. It'll always be the first low. Because if I'm getting out here at a 1 to 4, that doesn't meet my plan in my eyes. Since I see 1 to 15s, 20s, 30s every day, I'm not taking out at a 1 to 4, right? So 1 to 6 is the minimum. That 1 to 6 that I have for my refined limit order, that enables me to get in the trade. My second entry, right, interchangeably, it'll either be based off of order flow or after a BOS or continuation. So after I get the confirmation that there is a reversal, that's what gives me the confidence to, risk my floating profit of $300 and then risk an additional $100 so I can risk $400. In this second position specifically, it needs to have a 1 to 7, 1 to 8 or higher. No more 1 to 6 or lower. That's just for my first entry. My first entry gets me in. My second, third, fourth entry, that's where I won't have anything higher Absolutely not. Then a 5 pip stop loss or 3 pip stop loss. Again, it's case sensitive, but the RR is what matters. I don't care about RR. I don't care about stop loss as long as my RR meets what I need. So this second entry, this will be a 1 to 7, a 1 to 8, and it'll be based on either order flow or a BOS position, right? So this will be my second entry right here. So here I'd be risking $300-400. Again, in other terms, not actual amounts, but something you guys can understand, $300-400. And now let's say, where's your first area to take profit, take partials? Well, it would normally be right here. So once price hits here, guess what? Now this is where price next needs to go. So after I see this, the first limit, the refinement is mitigated. The second order is what establishes order flow. So now the order flow is continued. My third entry will now either be an order flow or a continuation. Meaning if we have a wall down here and we have this right here, guess where I'm going to be entering? I'm just going to be entering here. This third position, again, needs to be 1 to 7, 1 to 8 at a minimum, if not higher. So then I'm going to take my third position right here. And then if I decide to have a fourth one, it's always going to be on order flow. So again, you have your extreme mitigated, goes lower. My next entry would just be on this next extreme to go lower. So that's how I enter. First position, always a refined limit order, 1 to 6 at the minimum. My second position will either be an order flow entry or it'll be a BOS. Right, so let me go ahead and actually retype this. Order flow will be, second entry will be BOS or order flow. My third entry, right, will be order flow or a continuation. Right, so this is my first entry, refined limit. Sure as I get in trade. Second entry, BOS, following order flow. The third entry now will either be a continuation, meaning if there's already so much liquidity up here, I'm going to expect it's not going to come back to order flow. So new order flow will start to be created. That's where I'll enter my continuation trade. After my continuation trade is mitigated, it will then come back to order flow because order flow is what drives the markets. When price comes back to here, that's where I will enter my final position. Once it reaches that TP, I'll go ahead out of all the positions. I mean, think about it. You're going to have 3-4 positions at a 1 to 5, 1 to 6, 1 to 7 at a minimum. I mean, you're already out of 1 to 30 plus, right? And you're using, an equity, an equity curve, an equity trick that I've used for years. Your account is just going to amplify. In my opinion, when you're trading this way, do not be a greedy whatever. Just take out. For me, if I'm up, especially on funded accounts, and I'm doing this, just take off 80, 85%. I mean, when you're putting numbers to it, for instance, US 30 on, what was it? Geez, days are mixed up. Thursday, Wednesday it was. I mean, $31,000 on US 30, literally just doing this. And I got out, I took 80% of the position off. No, I took 85% of the position off. I let the rest run, went to the second TP, boom, clocked out at 31. Person cashed it out. I mean, it comes very, very simple, but everyone wants to focus on the strategy, not the money. Once you can master all of this and you can practice and you can then have a way to grow your personal account, go for funding. Now you're all of a sudden going to find yourself not over risking and doing dumb crap. You guys have seen me do $200 or it was $250 to $15,000 in one day, US 30 again, almost a month ago, 3.5 weeks ago now. I do that because I don't give a crap about losing $250. I like putting myself to the test so I can really practice my skills. But if you're on your last dollars, if you put everything you have in this, do not do this. When you are under financial duress or financial pressure, you can't think clearly. You're going to be using emotions. You're going to be saying, I need to do this. And then it's going to confuse you all over the board. I've been there. I've done that. I know what it takes when you've lost everything and make it all back. As much as I tried that way, it did not work. 10 out of 10 times, no matter how good I was, it didn't work. You have to be right psychologically before you make money financially. You have to be in the right place at the right time. You have to, that's something for those who want to know, I'll talk on later about. But this is my entry approach. Once you have your roadmap, you can see what's ahead of you, what it takes to get funded. Once you're funded, how to manage it. You know, what is it? Like 90+% of people who end up getting funded, they don't make it past their second payout. That is a crazy statistic. It's crazy to believe, but it's very easy to, because those traders who are funded and lose, it's all because of psychology, you know? But yeah, guys, I would definitely write this down. I will, reference this. It's just motivation to tell you guys all the same things are everywhere. If you know how to apply it, that is it. It's not like once you learn this, there's so much other crap, right? It's all psychology at that point. And again, I have my own performance psychologist for that. She's my guardian angel, helps me with everything, was there when I, had millions, there when I lost everything. Now I'm on my way back up, and like, it's a lot, but you guys will learn only you are capable of making your dreams come true. And once you realize that if this is something you really want more than you're willing to breathe, you're going to sacrifice whatever it takes to get there, whether it's your own psychology, your own greed, family, relationships, love, anything. I've done it all. And I can tell you, going through the moment, it's tough, but as long as you see the light at the end of the tunnel, you are limitless. You literally create your own reality. And escaping the matrix is more than just, navigating all this crap. It's psychology as well. And that's, without a doubt, that's the toughest part when you are making the money you want to make. Well, shit, my TP1 now is at 10 grand. Do I take out? Do I not? And some people around here know exactly what I'm talking about. That's where you're at another level. Because it's like, well, shit, there are days I used to talk about making 5-10 grand. Now you're in another level. Like, damn, like, is it now about money, or is it about the skill set? Do I want to be right, or do I not want to make money? And a lot of people, I want to get you guys to that point, because that's where breakthroughs are going to happen. It's not just a whole strategic, it's equally psychology as well. Yeah, guys, that's particularly what happens when we get tired, I ramble on. But anyways, I'm gonna let you guys run. Have a great rest of the day. I hope today was good for you guys. Tomorrow, expect practice. We're gonna be going over intraday mastery, all the cycles, the variations, putting it all together, and then wrapping it up with a glorious Q&A. So that is it for me for today before my voice gives out. But thank you guys for paying attention. I know it was long today. Yeah, Craig, glad you could hop on, man. Yeah. All right, we got to take some notes. I'll be giving you guys some homework this upcoming week, and I will see you guys bright and early tomorrow with a much more condensed version. All right, everyone, have a great rest of the day. Get out of here, and I'll talk to you guys later on.
Bye-bye, Griffin.
See you guys. Thank you guys for your time. Yeah, you guys have a good day too.